Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. From the Inside the Birds podcast is here. You can get that on all podcasting platforms. And, of course, it's a Wednesday edition of Football at 4. Geoff Mosher also writes for PhillyVoice.com. And he had a nice piece up there that I was reading last night about some of the free agent additions into the tight end room. And it's funny, Moshe, I was reading that. I kept thinking back to the time that a big topic of conversation was Dallas Goedert not returning. And now that he has returned, you write, the Eagles have a deep tight end room. This was a room that we were scratching our heads and wondering what they were going to do there. And they all kind of gathered this week. And as they get together, Geoff Mosher, by the way, you can read this article. TEU shows depth of Birds tight end room. They are there for the tight end university, which is something that has kind of happened. It's another season where all the tight ends, it's a 3-day summit for tight ends, and all the tight ends around the league get together, and it's in Nashville. They all get down there, and Dallas Goedert is there along with Grant Calcaterra, E.J. Jenkins. The two free agent signings, Kalen Granson and Harrison Bryant, aren't there. So we got Geoff Mosher back on the line here. And, Jeff, this tight end university is happening down in Nashville. It's the week where tight ends kind of are celebrated. And as you write about this here, that, with Goedert, we didn't know if he was going to come back. We were wondering how this room would look. And then as you write how deep this room is, and I'm wondering, is that position going to change, evolve, or be different now with the new offensive play caller?
Well, it certainly has the opportunity to evolve. And one thing I wrote was that I can't remember a tight end room that deep and that experienced. I mean, you can look at the Super Bowl team, the first one in 2017, where you had Dallas Goedert. You had Zach Ertz and you had Brent Selleck. A lot of experience and talent there. And you even had Trey Burton, who I think was in his second, maybe third year at the time. I forget. So there was some good and Burton was a guy who played quarterback at times at Florida and was sort of that offensive weapon type. So they had a good diversity of skill set. But Mike, right behind Dallas Goedert now, you have 3 fourth-round picks. One of them is Grant Calcaterra, who's been playing for them for the last 3 years, and then Kalen Granson and Harrison Bryant are both fourth-round picks who were in situations with quarterbacks, bad offenses. Bryant won the Mackey Award in college. So, I mean, he came into the league with some potential to catch the ball. I believe it was over 1,000 yards and around double-digit touchdowns when he was at, I think it was at school at. So that's pretty good when you could say you have 3 fourth-round picks who all have NFL experience behind your starter, and then even a guy like E.J. Jenkins, who's been with the team, who's a converted wide receiver. The guy's 260 pounds, and they've been really working on getting his blocking acumen up. So that's another guy who's going to be in the mix. And a guy like Cameron Latu, they got from the Niners. He was, I believe, a 3rd or 4th round pick also. So he hasn't. Nick Muse from Vikings.
Yep.
So you got a lot of guys here who have experience and can do things, and they're not all going to make it.
Jeff, we look at this tight end room. You got Goedert. What's the room in your mind? Who's got the best shot at getting the next reps behind him? Is it still Calcaterra, or is it one of the guys that they've added and that we've talked about here?
Well, it kind of depends what they're looking for. I think that while Calcaterra has been the guy establishing a rapport with Jalen Hurts, and you can see he can give you something in the passing game, it doesn't give you much in the blocking game. He's willing, but not necessarily able. He's really not very good at it, and it hurts the team at times. Now, Kalen Granson is also not a blocking tight end, but if you look at his career averages, I mean, he can stretch the field for a tight end, getting between 12 and 14 yards per catch, and he can probably run a little bit better even than Calcaterra can. So if they're really trying to open the passing game, you could see Kalen Granson being somebody who I thought looked pretty good in a couple of the OTA sessions that were open to the media. Harrison Bryant caught a couple of passes too. So the big question I have is, can Harrison Bryant block well? Can he block better than Calcaterra? He has come from some offenses there and with the Raiders last year and the Browns before that, where they do like to run the ball and they're asked to block. So if he can block, we already know he can catch the ball well, then maybe he would get more of a nod than Kalen Granson But if you're looking for just pass, then Granson's the guy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. That'll be an interesting, training camp to see how they, elect to kind of keep that room together, break it up, do something different. Because, as we said, Kevin Petula might want to incorporate the tight end a little bit more, right? And to do that, he might look at guys a little differently. Although Calcaterra has shown he can catch the football while Goedert's been out. He has been a part of the passing game there. Now, do they consider keeping 4 tight ends? How deep and experienced this group looks?
I just don't think that that's necessary anymore with what you're able to use on your practice squad and having guys that you can elevate at. To me, it's a waste of a roster spot unless you've got like a young developmental one that you want to make sure you hold on to. But even then, 4 is kind of a lot.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 for the Inside the Birds podcast, tight end you, good stuff there. Read that article about Goedert because you guys had Goedert on and talking about how things could be different. You take a look at what Goedert brings to the table. We would imagine this is his last year here with the team. But do you look back and say, could they get more from him? Or is this what he is? Because every year we feel like, oh, this is going to be the big year for Goedert. There's so much there. When you look at him, some people think he's one of those top 10 tight ends, but the numbers just don't really break out. He always gets hurt. But could he be, do you think he could or should be a bigger factor in this offense?
Well, it's hard to be a bigger factor in the offense than he was when it mattered, and that was the postseason. And he led the Eagles in catches, receiving yards during the playoffs. So he was, de facto stat-wise, their most important pass catcher in the playoffs. Could he have a bigger role throughout the season? Sure. Obviously, a lot of that is dependent on staying healthy, but what mitigates him maybe being in that Kelsey, Kittle, Laporta range or McBride, right, is the fact that the offense is never going to revolve around him. He's never going to be the centerpiece. He's far behind. Well, not far, but he's behind A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith in the pecking order. So there might be a game or two, or sporadically throughout the year, where he gets more targets than those guys. But at the end of the year, when like we always talk about the back of a baseball card for a guy, right, when he's struggling, at the end of the year, Goedert's going to, if he stays healthy, per game average be right behind Devontae and right behind A.J. Brown in targets and receptions.
Yeah, and, by the way, you got Devontae Smith, who maybe has one of the best, the number 2 receivers in the league. Got A.J. Brown, who might be the best wide receiver in the league. That makes it difficult to kind of fit the tight end in. But as you kind of indicated, come playoff time when everybody's on higher alert, that's when Goedert can be at his best. So it's like you almost have to wait all season long to kind of reap the benefits of this talent that you have.
Yeah, and you hope for his sake that he can stay healthy this year, be more productive, because this is probably his last year as an Eagle. And I think if you're an Eagle fan and you have an appreciation for Dallas Goedert and the 2 Super Bowls he's been to and the one that he's been able to help deliver, then you want to see the best for him. Yeah. And so have him have a nice, healthy year and go on, and wherever it is next year after that, then good for him.
All right, man. Well, you take a look at some of the other things that are going on as this little lull period before, by the way, inside 1 month of training camp. Yesterday with Adam, we talked about the Lions and are they the biggest threat in the NFC? Do you put the Lions or somebody else as the biggest threat to the Eagles in the NFC?
I have some major question marks about the Lions because they have great talent, but obviously the 2 coaches who really got the most out of that great talent are not, along with Dan Campbell, are not there. And those are the 2 coordinators, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. So we've seen that with the Eagles, a lot of great talent. But in 2023, they had new coordinators, and it didn't work out very well with Sean Desai and Brian Johnson, and they had to clean house. So I think that from a 53-man roster standpoint, yes, they are the biggest challenge for the Eagles. But is there another team that might have it more together? Kaplan and I sort of argue this back and forth. I like the Rams. I think they've got the continuity, the great coaching staff, the quarterback play, the defense that really came along last year and is young. They're a little deficient in some areas. Like you look at the secondary, and it's not great, but they added Devontae Adams. I think that they're on their best day can give any single team a run for its money. So it wouldn't surprise me if we talked about the Rams similarly as anyone else as a big threat to the Eagles in the NFC.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, the Lions, I like your pick with the Rams, too. And I'm wondering, we were talking about, because the Lions are plus 140 in the North. They're the favorite over there. But are the Bears this year's version of Washington? Do you look at them as one of those type of teams that they could be a challenger, a team that went to the NFC Championship game last year, the Commanders, kind of came out of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean, they could be. I think about the last two kind of teams like that, Washington last year and then Houston the year before, and they really played in divisions where there wasn't as much balance, I would say, as the NFC North. Obviously, the Eagles are very good, and Washington had to contend with that, but Dallas was not very good last year. The Giants have been not good for quite a while. Just like Houston in the AFC South, it's not like Jacksonville, Tennessee, and who am I missing? In that division are perennially awesome.
Yeah, Minnesota, Green Bay.
Indianapolis, right?
Yeah.
So, this great rookie quarterback season and win a division that's not as balanced, I think, as the NFC North. So the Bears could be a lot better, but you still got to get through a schedule that includes the Packers, who I would put right there with the Rams and maybe the Commanders. When you ask me about teams that could threaten the Eagles, I think the Packers, if they can get Jordan Love to play 20% better than he did last year, I think they'll be a very, very good team. I think the Vikings, we don't know about McCarthy, but every other aspect of that team is pretty good. I think they're going to be formidable regardless, and of course the Lions, right? So I think no matter what, the Bears could be a 25% better than last year, 50% better, and it doesn't mean they're going to win 13, 12 games like the Commanders did last year.
The Commanders last year, went to the NFC Championship game. Kind of a surprise to everybody. Could the Bears be that surprise team? We'll see. And as we talked about, a lot of people look at the NFC East, and we talked about Washington earlier in the week in the NFC East. This whole who's repeated in the NFC. No one's done it since the Eagles all the way back. So they've got a lot that they have to kind of buy into. We talked about could they dominate the division there. They've got to dominate a lot of really good teams this year. That's the thing. You talk about the Rams, the Lions, just the teams in the NFC. It's going to be very important to win those NFC games this year if you want to be that a year ago.
It is, and there'll be some surprises. We've been doing on Inside the Birds our annual NFC East preview series with Greg Cosell, where he really goes into the tape and breaks down schemes, newcomers, free agent signings for each of the four teams. We did Dallas, and there's no question that the Cowboys have a lot of talent. There's no question that when Dak Prescott is healthy, they win on average, I think, 11 to 12 games a year, which is not easy to do in the NFL. Put their playoff history aside, because we're not talking about that right now. We're just talking about who's going to be a formidable foe, right, for those 17 weeks of the regular season. And if they're healthy and their players are playing well, the ones that are really good, they've got a lot of good players, so they should be formidable.
All right, well, we know that this time of the year is the list version of the season. Nick Sirianni on the list. He came in as the number 8 head coach in football, and I'm wondering, is that a fair number for Nick Sirianni? Do we not give Sirianni the credit he deserves? We talked about this back when he signed his contract, but is 8 fair? I looked at the 7 guys ahead of him. And if you said, hey, you could replace Nick Sirianni with any of these 7 guys, do you automatically do it?
Wow, 8. So 7 guys. I don't sit here and try to guess, but I got to think that, McVay is on that list.
Oh, you haven't seen this list?
I have not seen the list, yes.
All right, this is a pro Football Focus ranking of the top returning head coaches in football. Nick Sirianni is on the list of the top 10. He is number 8.
Andy Reid is 1, I'm sure.
Andy Reid is 1.
McVay 2.
McVay 3.
Who the heck am I missing? What, Kyle Shanahan?
Kyle Shanahan 7.
Who am I missing? Belichick's not coaching anymore, right? I've just got to make sure that in my head that I'm not missing some 5 or 6-time champion here. So
no Belichick on this list.
Yeah, all right. Just who's 2?
Number 2.
Carroll, because he's back.
Nope. Number 2 is Sean Payton.
Okay.
Okay. 1, Andy Reid. 2, Sean Payton. 3, Sean McVay.
Right. Where's Pete Carroll? I'm sure he's on the list now.
He's not in the top 10, so he did not make this list.
All right. Well, I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed with this list because I'm sure Kevin O'Connell is probably on it because he's a darling, and even though he's never
Kevin O'Connell, he did not make the list, by the way. So number 4 is John Harbaugh.
Forgot about that. That makes sense. Okay.
Number 5 is Mike Tomlin.
Fair. Man, see, I'm bad. This summer heat is getting to me.
Number 6 is Jim Harbaugh. And number 7 was Kyle Shanahan. Number 8 was Nick Sirianni. So of the group of Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Sean McVay, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, Jim Harbaugh, Kyle Shanahan, are you automatically saying, if they're available, sorry, Nick, you're out?
Listen, I think you can make some good arguments for them. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I mean, I laughed at Jim Harbaugh, but he did make it to a Super Bowl. Now he lost. Nick Sirianni won, but I'm never the type that says just because this guy won one and this guy lost one, that automatically means guy who won one is better, right? Because that's ridiculous. We can go through quarterbacks. Like Joe Flacco is better than Dan Marino? I don't think so. So I get that. I just don't know to me, it's play caller bias. Or it's side of the ball bias. Mike Tomlin, defensive mastermind. Kyle Shanahan, offensive play caller mastermind. And Nick is constant. He'll always be. And then you just said Pete Carroll's not on that list either. This guy's been to 2 Super Bowls and won one, just like Nick Sirianni, right? So it's that constant. If you don't specialize on a certain side of the football, you just don't get the same respect as those who do. That's the only way to read it, I think. Yeah,
well, if you're not the play caller, you don't get the same. Like, being the play caller is the equivalent of, that's like your way of being a star at the coaching rank, right? If you're not a play caller, you're vanilla.
Right. Now, John Harbaugh is only higher on that list than Nick Sirianni, despite being the same kind of coach, because this man has been to 2 Super Bowls, won one, and is literally in the playoffs every year with different quarterbacks now. I mean, he's had to accomplish some of the most difficult things in sports compared to, say, Kyle Shanahan, who's just been an offensive play caller on and had really good teams, right? And he's on the list with no Super Bowl wins. But look at what John Harbaugh had to do, his resume, just to get on that list as a guy who doesn't specialize on one side of the ball. And that's where the unfairness is.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast here on the Sports Bash Live. Check out his coverage of the Eagles and Philly sports over at phillyvoice.com. He's got plenty of more this week. Got a good Phillies article up there as well. Check out all of that stuff at phillyvoice.com. And, of course, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. All right, Moshe, we'll talk to you.
Mike, real quick, you want to have fun? My Philly Voice story today, I did 20 years of Eagles drafting safeties going back to 2005, and how every single one of them was basically a miss. None of them, there were some that were okay. Nate Allen was okay. None of them signed a long-term second contract with the Eagles. Is that not amazing? 20 years.
That's unbelievable.
15 safeties, I believe, was the number, and not one of them was able to see a long-term second contract with the Eagles.
I thought Nate Allen was going to be the one.
We all did. Then he had the torn patellar, and he's one of the few on that list that actually re-signed, but it was a 1-year deal, and then it was just kind of an okay year, and then he went off to the Raiders and got hurt again. But man, far better in free agency with their safeties and draft. So you hope that Andrew Makuba, he's battling some ghosts here. So that's what they hope.
Well, hopefully they can, defeat that ghost at safety and the back-to-back NFC East thing. That number, 20 years and counting, no back-to-back NFC East champions. Geoff Mosher. All right, buddy, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, by the way, I'm Team Edgecombe, if you care.
I do care. Team Edgecombe. Yeah, I'm out on Ace Bailey. I'd be on the Edgecombe camp as well. I'm actually trade back. I'm on Team Trade Back.
I hear that, but I want Edgecombe. I love the attitude, the hustle, the versatility, the athleticism. I just feel like he's got an opportunity to develop better some of the other guys because the floor is, I mean, the ceiling will be really high for him.
I can get on that. Hey, listen, if they make a pick at 3, Edgecombe would be my guy.
There you go. All right, man. Take care.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you on Monday with a Mosher Monday mailbag here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN.